Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Higurashi. Last time was more Tomoe Natsumi stuff, some nice stuff there, a little intrigue with the drugs and stuff, but yeah we were just finishing up that nice little segment with them, sending Natsumi back on her way with some nice confidence in her back pocket. And we're picking off with the fake Ooishi. Thought I forgot about this guy. Ooishi better sue this motherfucker. Look at him. Clearly stealing clout off my boy. So I think this is Tokyo, but it might be police stuff. We'll see. Nope, it's not Tokyo. My instincts are off. It's one of the good guys. I'll let him go. Chief Oouchi of the National Research Institute of Police Science and RIPS closed the investigation report he just finished reading as he said that. Then he nodded and said, "Thank you for your assistance," while sliding the document across the desk to Section Chief Okabe of the 2nd Criminal Investigation Division of Kakuchi Station. This guy's the douchebag, right? The guy like Tomoe fucked over.
お役に立ちそうですか?
とんでもありません。私も長い間、科警研に籍を置いていますが、ここまで詳細なデータがまとめられた資料は見たことがありません。高級ばかり取ってまともに働きもしないどこぞの大学教授どもに爪の赤でも煎じて飲ませてやりたいくらいですよ。
Rose hating on university professors? Don't they make like a notoriously low amount of money for their job? Though maybe it's different in Japan. Plus back then.
そりゃどうも。そう言
This
っていた
depends
だ
on
け
what
る
school
と
you're from.
気合を入れて資料作りに励んだ連中が喜びますよ。
Okabe let out a wahaha laugh as he picked up the documents. Hold on, just adjusting. Perfect. In fact, these materials were only completed this morning. He had very little time to sleep for the past few days, but he heard that Oouchi was returning to Tokyo for a while starting tomorrow, so he's forced to compile them. Of course, he couldn't exactly explain that and expect gratitude. No matter what he said, he wouldn't understand. At best, he could boast to his colleagues about the reward he received. Okabe muttered that to himself while staring at Ooichi.
科警研の本局でも今回試験運用しているプロファイリング分析は非常に重要視されておりましてね。
Tomoe is the one that started this, right?
実際の現場で捜査員の手をお借りして検証を行う絶好の機会はそうそうありませんから。
She got the ball rolling.
他の研究員たちも指を加えていましたよ。
そうですか。いや、それはよかった。
過去の事件簿をどれだけ分析したところで、所詮は骨董品の品評でしかありませんからね。データ自体も当時の未熟な捜査員が先入観に基づいてまとめたものしか存在しない。今回の捜査員の皆さんくらいにできる人ばかりであれば、もう少し有用な資料として用いることができたのですが。
恐縮です。
While chiming in with generally agreeable responses, he nearly said, "Rude bastard," only to swallow his words. Yeah, he's lazy, but he's also really disrespecting the other guys, huh? Applying current values to the past is arrogant and presumptuous in the first place. They did the best they could at the time with their limited know-how and technology.
そこまで言うのなら、自分
That's
一
true.
人の
I didn't see
力で
that
やってみる
being
といい。
insulting.
できもしないくせに。
Plus, Ooichi treats actual investigations like research samples, and likes to think he's controlling the investigators like he's simply moving around game pieces. How imprudent, considering real people have died. It was rather aggravating, but these sorts of prodigies have a remarkable lack of respect and consideration for others when speaking of them. Perhaps, in their minds, they see the thoughts and feelings of the victims, the criminals, and the other people involved as nothing but inorganic data meant to be quantified. That's why detectives in the field don't think highly of NRIPS. NRIPS probably doesn't even realize it and never will.
失点回復の剣がなければ間違いなくぶっ飛ばしてやるところなんだがな。
Sure you would, bro. To be honest, he had no duty or reason to do this much for them. Investigation materials are valuable records for detectives in the first place. Nevertheless, he wasn't proud to be providing free information on a moment's notice to the NRIP guys, who just take materials from other departments and do their work from the safety of their desks.
それでもだ。
I mean, they're researchers, though. I mean, to be fair to the NRIPs, they're not going on the field, man. They're meant to take your work and research the hard work. It's a joint effort. Okabe and the others in the Second Investigation Division took a heavy blow to their reputation when they were pulled off a joint investigation with HQ last month and replaced by the First Division. Since Deputy Chief Hata had ordered him to take advantage of this opportunity to save face, he wasn't in much of a position to refuse. But if it meant being pushed around by this youngster, so lacking in common sense, acting like a bigger man than he really was, then Okabe would rather be arguing with that little girl again. Tomoe reference?
何を言っている。
He misses her. He even acknowledges she was based. Okabe muttered that to himself, then shook his head to starve off his idle thoughts. Ooichi's proposal to commit a breach of mistrust against that little girl should have been a godsend to Okabe with what his own repulsion of her. So what's the point in regretting it now? Because it was wrong? It was talking about like justice and shit, and he's like, yeah, we hated her, so we booted her. Okabe tried hard to fight off the guilt swelling in his heart while scolding himself. Because if he couldn't do that, then his pride would shrink even smaller.
ところでどうですか。例の合同捜査本部の方の捜査の進展は。
難しいですね。何せ事件発生から半年も経って有力な手がかりが見つからなかった状況からのスタートですから、関係者の記憶を掘り起こすのも一苦労ですよ。
The incident. What is this incident?
それでは現状それほど変化はなしと。
そうですね。まあ期限まであと少し。できるだけのことはやってみますよ。
Is this like a Tokyo spy? Or am I crazy? Remember there's that like one guy who was a Tokyo spy that was clearly an insider? Maybe it's this guy. I'm trying to remember. Maybe the incident's that girl? The nurse girl that killed herself in the airport?
笑っている場合じゃないだろう。
Maybe.
何のためにここへ来たのか分かっているのか。
He was irked by Ouichi's attitude and how he talked about it like it was someone else's problem, but he pretended not to notice. 3 months have passed since NRIPS assembled a special team to participate in the joint investigation into the Omaki schoolgirl murder case. Okay, so it is that. Yep. What's her name? Nagisa, who got killed by the nurse? No. The nurse killed the boyfriend, and Nagisa got like run over by a truck from Tokyo. And then the nurse got caught before she was about to escape, but she got drugged by someone who was an insider to the police because they knew beforehand they were coming. There's your quick summary. It's currently being led by the 1st Investigation Division at Prefectural Police HQ and the 1st Division at Kikuchi Station, since Okabe and the 2nd Division were pulled off the case and forced to resume normal operations. However, despite daily investigations and regular staff rotations, they still hadn't exhausted their list of suspects. Or rather, they couldn't even assemble a list of suspicious individuals. And for now, On top of the constant investigation and gathering of personal information, NRIPS had laid out a manual outlining investigation methodologies, but despite all that, things have still been progressing slowly. Although it's natural for there to be difficulties finding meaningful evidence now that half a year's passed since the incident. However, Oouchi and the guys from NRIPS forcefully cut into the investigation in an effort to identify a culprit. Nevertheless, there hasn't been any significant injuries in progress despite the additional manpower. Even though it was someone else's problem, when Otome saw that, he wasn't sure if he should be more embarrassed or feel a sense of impending crisis.
その代わりに別の餌場を見つけたからな。もう興味がないのだろう。
Yes, he understood well the reason Ooichi couldn't make that face, because there had been some surprising results. The truth is, he made arrangements to have a search team observe the implementation of NRIP's assembled investigation manual, and it was approved separately from the Joint Investigation Headquarters project. And he secretly colluded with the second division, using surplus staff to monitor and verify how effective the process is in the real world on-site investigations over the past 6 months. Ultimately, they were able to investigate some suspicious people according to the manual, and were able to crack down on a large number of minor crimes as a result.
犯罪の起こりやすい場所と時間帯については、私たちもいくつか見解を持っていました。ですが、まさか天候や気温までが影響を及ぼすとは驚きでしたよ。
Well, you would think that would actually take an effect if it was like a planned crime?
私も最初は正直半信半疑でね。いや、マニュアルを渡されたはいいが、よくもまあいい加減なことを書いているものだなんて思いながら従っていましたよ。
But when they opened the lid, amazing results came out. Minor crimes like theft and assault are very difficult to deter, and investigation results were poor using the original methodology. Until now, the only way to identify the suspect was through careful inquiry and eyewitness testimony. Otherwise, undercover agents would have to catch the criminal in the act. However, this method of identifying suspects from suspicious individuals is both accurate and realistic. Just the other day, it even succeeded in catching a suspect right before the crime occurred. What was most shocking of all to battle-hardened Otome was the perpetrator was captured by an inexperienced young detective, just following the manual.
どこで実行に踏み切るのか。またその直後、どのような逃走経路を取るか。このマニュアルを参考に捜査員を配置していたところ、まさにドンピシャリでしてな。おかげで以前から手配をかけていた常習犯があっさり網にかかってしまった。逮捕した連中が一番驚いていましたよ。
さすがは欧米の犯罪心理学といったところですね。
Thank you, FBI.
捜査の効率性と有用性をいかにして高めるか。ただその一点を徹底的に追求している。我々も目から鱗の落ちる思いです。今回の結果はこれからの捜査体系の見直しにつながるものだと中央からも高く評価されておりまして。
だからってお前が威張るな。
Otome was frustrated with Ouichi's attitude. Yeah, we've heard for a while now. Acting like this was all thanks to them. It's certainly true that Otome and the on-site investigators thought highly of this investigation manual. It was the latest theory that Western countries were using to incorporate scientific analysis into fighting crime, profiling. It was both surprising and confusing for the old guard detectives who had relied primarily on their intuition and years of experience.
もしこれが本当にマニュアルとして完成されれば間違いなく大きな力になる。
Intuition, experience, and consistent inquiry are the key elements of an investigation. But it's impossible to learn those skills overnight. It takes time and effort to train young detectives to reach that point. But what would happen if this manual was adopted at a full scale? Up until now, young investigators could only be used for information gathering, but now they can accurately hunt down suspects or even catch them in their nets. Their nets have gotten finer, so to speak, and it's no exaggeration to say they're able to aim those nets in places where prey is more densely populated. Of course, there are always exceptions to any rule, so relying exclusively on the theory could lead to unexpected missteps. But that hole can be filled through the experience of veterans. This will increase the diversity of police investigations and, more importantly, increase their ability to apprehend criminals.
古き良きなんて言葉は警察には必要ない。犯人逮捕に全力を尽くして市民の安全を約束する。そのためなら手段は選ぶな。
Some are, but sure. Okabe always sourly said that to his detectives. Criminals are getting smarter year after year, improving their skills at evading the net of the law. And the police need to acquire the skills to stay on top of them. Doing so is necessary to protect the dignity of the police force. Any investigator who has survived the trial of fire on the scene has felt it both large and small.
みんな分かっていたことだ。だが、それを導入するためには高いハードルがあった。
They definitely explored that in the Tomoe trilogy episode 3. How, like, it's a good idea, but making people actually follow it is really hard. Especially for, like, police people who are so used to their, like, strict tradition. Suddenly changing it up might be, hard to acclimate. Even if the Western theories are good, just transplanting them doesn't help, because Japan has a different lifestyle and crime patterns. That's also true. Thus, in order to apply it in a Japanese setting, you need an experienced person to conduct the analysis. Someone who understands the feel of the crime scene, but also understands Japan's unique geography and the means of transportation. Moreover, the folks at NREPS who always view the material from behind their desks, who never felt the sorrow and hatred of the people involved in these incidents, who would take decades to make anything tangible out of it. Even if they put it all together and distributed it, it would end up laughed off as a useless empty theory, and they'd have no choice but to toss it in the trash. This material was organized by the section chief of the Ibaraki Professional Police based on long-term investigation data. Okabe had read the dissertation before with a fine eye on the details, and it was carefully summarized even while in the midst of conducting hard work. It was undoubtedly the result of that little girl putting in the effort to create a theoretical manual that caught the eye of the upper management. True. Tomoe clears, as per usual.
とりあえず今回この結果を持ち帰ることができただけでもまずは上々といったところでしょうか。これらは近い将来捜査活動の改善案として全国の捜査員の皆さんのお役に立てるものになると思います。
I just remembered there's like a third guy that was actually a detective whose name I don't remember, but if it's him, it's probably, I wouldn't be that surprised. This guy's just a creep. It's the curse of flying too close to the sun and naming your kid Ouichi in a world where Ooishi exists.
本当に岡部課長にはいくら感謝しても足りないくらいですよ。
恐縮です。それでは失礼します。
Get me out of here. After a bow, Okabe turned on his heels and left the room. If this conversation went any further, he was seriously gonna punch this guy, as he said for the third time. Surely he'll punch him. After returning to the second investigation division office, he plopped down on his seat and threw his feet up on the desk. It was a habit Okabe resorted to when he was in a really bad mood, so the detectives around him knew it was a sign to let sleeping dogs lie, and they left him
あ
behind,
ん
or
な
left
奴
him
らに
be.
あの小娘はよく辛抱しているものだ。
Okabe muttered that to himself after sucking down 3 cigarettes to quell his anger. Jesus Christ. He was really tilted. 3? They were feigning compliance, but Oouchi and the others were largely ignoring Joint Investigation HQ's use of the manual, and instead trying to win some success on other cases. For Oouchi, incidents are the place to earn career advancement points, so naturally he was careful to choose the ones that looked most promising and give them precedence. However, he didn't realize that this specific characteristic was causing detectives in the field to resent him, only choosing the juicy jobs.
そんなクズのためにあの娘は走り回っている。なぜだ？
That little girl probably already knew about Oichi's betrayal. Nevertheless, she accepted it and kept going. On the contrary, she went to the prefectural police HQ several times in the name of cooperation with the public relations ever since NRIPS launched this project. Working with the joint investigation detectives in the field, taking the time to explain things carefully, and acting as the mediator without letting it hurt her feelings or her pride. Whenever the NRIP staff made improper remarks or gave insolent orders, she simply bowed her head instead of retaliating. On top of that, she would regularly visit the site to gather opinions to see if there were any pain points among the investigators, and try to appease them. That little girl spared no effort. When it wouldn't help her evaluations and would make her an outcast. That was Tomoe Minai. She was doing backbreaking work that even athletic men would gripe about, without a word of complaint. Even Okabe, who hated her, was in awe of her dedication.
そんな役回りなのに大したものだ。
She got that real fighting spirit. Samurai girl. That reminded Okabe of an earlier conversation he had with the section-chief of the 1st Division, Dojima. Dojima said that he actually refused to cooperate when Tomoe first came here to explain the NRIPS project. Flashback me.
姫さんの気持ちはわかる。大巻の件は奇想の速水からも聞いてるし、岡部の野郎に手を出したくなったのも当然だろう。だがな、それとこれとは話が違う。無茶な敵討ちはただの自己満足でしかない。そりゃあんたも分かっているんだろう。
That was a reckless retaliation. It's a...
はい、よくわか
I
ってい
mean,
ま
it
す。
is retaliation, but is it really reckless?
恨みや憎しみで無理をしても何にもならない。まして、これだけ複数の組織で大勢の人を動かす目的がそんな個人的なものであれば、私も反対したと思います。
だったらなぜ犯行目的、犯人像は全くの不明。手がかりも完全に手詰まりだ。報道の連中には3ヶ月で型をつけるって言ったそうだが、なんでそんな無茶を。
無茶は承知の上です。
Well, we'll do it anyway.
ゴールにたどり着けるかどうかも正直自信はありません。でも立ち向かいたいんです。この事件の背後にはおそらく大きな何かの意志が存在している。
I mean, she's not wrong.
それが何かも分からずに
Extremely
諦
powerful
めて
will.
捜査を閉じてしまっては
And
悪の
godlike
存
will,
在を
you
許
may
し
say.
正義を語る警察としての立場が揺るがされることにもなりかねない。私は市民の規範たる警察官として悪には全力で立ち向かっていきたいんです。
It was just as Tomoe said. There are far too many anomalous elements to this case. A schoolgirl assaulted her classmates while shouting out the curse of Oyashiro-sama. One of the victims was hospitalized after the incident and was later murdered in a way the killer attempted to portray as suicide. Then that murderer went on to commit suicide right after offering a mysterious confession. On top of that, another girl who had close relations with the victim died in very suspicious circumstances. It certainly had a different feel to it than your typical impulsive act of violence. However,
未解決の事件なんてこの国にはそれこそ数えきれないほどある。
being out the cold case unit,
この事件はその中の一つでしかない。それに肯定して時間を費やすよりも解決できるものから片付けていくことも大事じゃないのか。
that's pessimistic,
その通りです。
I
事件
guess.
に大きい小さいも優先順位もない。だから私は目の前にあるこの事件に全力を注ぎたいのです。
She compromised here. Next time she faced a difficult case, somewhere in her mind she might feel the urge to run away. Tomoe couldn't stand that. No matter how much disappointment and frustration she faced, she wanted to fight it with all her might and get results. She vowed to pour her heart toward that goal because otherwise she couldn't forgive
だ
herself.
から科警研を動かしてまでのプロジェクトか。にしてもマスコミにまで派手にぶち上げてよかったのか。いくら注目度を上げて上層部の関心を引くためだとはいえ、失敗すればただでは済まない。
Gotta risk it for the biscuit, brother.
あんた自身の進路、いや退路すら立つことにもなりかねないぞ。
相手は巨大で完全に闇の中に潜んでいます。ですから普通に操作しただけでは尻尾を出すとは思えない。なのでとにかく派手に動いて反応を待つ。そのためのマスコミです。
Okay, I mean, not a bad line of thinking.
だからってこれは分が悪い賭けだ。
That shit worked in other stories, so why not?
むしろ焼けっぱちとしか思えん。姫さん、それはあんたが一番わかってるはずだろう。
Sometimes you just gotta put 100 on green on roulette, man. Just gotta pray for a miracle. Solving a cold case in just 3 months. To put it plainly, the odds are slim. In fact, the success rate is low enough it might as well be considered impossible. It's hard to believe that the big shots even had enough faith to authorize it. However,
華やかな方が食いつきが良くなるじゃないですか。それに埋蔵金とか謎の遺跡とか見つかる必要なんてないものでもそれを追っているとテレビ局も成功は特に期待していませんし、あとは私の覚悟だけです。
姫さん、お前。
she is determined. She is focused up. Give us the chance, boss. Knowing her intentions behind this, Dojima was stunned. She was shining a light on the incident to attract the attention of the mass media, and using that pretense to gather information on the case. And she even dragged Enrips into this, hoping to give the enemy a sense of crisis, driving them to panic and change their behavior. Even if the investigation failed, the only damage would be to Tomoe's career. The TV stations wouldn't care as long as they got the ratings they wanted. On top of that, she's putting her own life at risk by volunteering for the role of the decoy. Programming about extreme and heroic events has major wide audience appeal. If the developments or the ending lead to tragedy, that'll give it more attention. And because it's not a work of fiction but an actual documentary, there's no need for nosy directing or excessive tension. On the station side of things, it was very appetizing theme.
お前さんが死ねばさらに視聴率は上がるだろうな。
Yeah, it does.
追悼番組で俺にコメントでもさせるつもりか。
Gotta believe in your girl, Dojima.
まさかそこ
Believe
ま
in
で
the
お付き合いいた
Tomoe.
だくつもりはありませんよ。
Though to be fair, she has died like twice in this story. I forgot if she died in. She didn't die in the first one. She died once.
でも番組としては
She
それ
almost
なり
got
に盛り
choked
上が
out
るものとなるでしょうから、少なく
in
と
the
も
other one.
通常の警察取材番組よりも世間の関心は高くなる。そうすればこの事件のことが風化する恐れはなくなります。
そりゃまあ確かにそうだが。
Once the incident stops being fresh and topical, investigators obtain far less information through questioning. In other words, Tomoe is trying to keep the investigation efficiency up by consistently making the case topical. Dojima thoroughly understood that this was an act of police absurdity. He was amazed at her and had to hold back his admiration, so he suddenly let out a laugh.
お前さんの思いはよくわかった。俺もできる限りの協力はしよう。だが、どうなっても知らんぞ。
Oh, I will. No.
ええ、望むところです。
Tomoe smiled as she said that, and her smile was full of courage, resolution, and strong will. What a gal.
だとさ。
That said? Game? Oh,
分かっていて
What
も
happened?
なかなかできることじゃない。
I thought my game bugged. Excuse
あ
me?
の覚悟は本当に大したものだと思うぞ。
It's kind of bugged. I can't press enter key. Have to use mouse. Sorry about the mouse. As he bitterly listened to Dojima's enthusiastic declaration, Okabe suddenly noticed an emotion welling up inside his heart different from his instinctual hatred. Mixed feelings, ranging between admiration and jealousy, upon seeing someone push hard to make something happen that he'd once given up on. In a sense, maybe it was envy.
それだけに家系圏の若造どもが鼻につくのだ。
So weird. At this point, Ooichi and the guys at NRIPS were no longer interested in investigating the Omati Strudel murder incident. Did they decide in their preliminary investigation that the case was unsolvable? They seemed to give up early on, and all their subsequent investigation activities were no more than a formality. In fact, they seemed to place much more importance on the Minor Crimes Actions Manual that Deputy Chief Hara assembled in secret, in direct defiance of Joint Investigation HQ. Instead of trying to gain credit by solving an unsolvable case, he would earn points by collecting data that can be easily and reliably gathered. That seemed the more prudent means of self-preservation for a thin-skinned bookworm. Looking at them with that attitude, even Okabe, who wasn't involved with the investigative HQ, felt astonished and thought to himself, what did they even come here to do? But Tomoe and her colleagues may have already learned about Oichi's inside job, and on top of that, they respect their position as mediators as a matter of convenience. And in addition to being acknowledged by field investigators, she had the pride of a top-class elite. Just imagining the amount of labor involved was headache-inducing. That's why she had such a strong belief in catching the culprit, but it would be impossible to endure that without putting all your energy into it.
浅見が傾倒するのも当然かもしれんな。
His head finally started to cool off. Okabe muttered that and smiled. Asami became the deputy section chief of the 2nd Division after Kojima retired to take care of his parents. He transferred from a detective position at Prefectural HQ. Unlike his predecessor, Kojima was a meme. He was sharp and quick to take action, which earned him several awards from the chief of headquarters. So, Okabe saw him as a nearly perfect right-hand man. The only thing he didn't like was how friendly he was with Tomoe.
正直こちら側が勝手に壁を作っていたようなそんな気がします。
Gonna have to cut it here. Short episode tonight, but getting the rare Okabe POV, never thought it would happen. One of the biggest douchebags in the Tomoe trilogy, though he did redeem himself a little bit by the end of it, but still a shocking POV where he's kind of a little based right now, which is cool. But yeah, next time we will finish the POV and whatever else happens and learn more stuff about what's been happening in Tatsuchi after Tomoe left, I guess. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time with some more Higurashi. Later.